Hello, everyone. Welcome to lesson 2. This week, we're going to look at adding a table to a web page, and we're going to look at, we're going to take another look. We're going to revisit links, including how we make navigation, the menu to get around on a website itself. So we'll start off with the table. So by a table, I'm talking about essentially a spreadsheet, a chart, a data chart on a web page. We don't want to put it in a paragraph. Maybe we could put it in a list, but really, if it's a table of data like a spreadsheet, then we want to use the table element. So there's a few different elements that go along with it. That's why I put it in this week on its own um, for building a table. So we'll get started here. You can see my web page on the right. On the left-hand side, here is my HTML file. Something I didn't mention last week is the main page, the home page of a website, the file name should always be index.html, not home or page one, but index. The home page is always called index.html. So that's what I've called this one this week, and you'll see why in a little bit. Inside my HTML document, there's my HTML element. Here's my head section, my title element for my tab text, which you can see up here, tables and links. Inside the body is what the user will see in the main browser window. So right now I just have a main heading in H1, and I've got two subheadings for the two different topics I'm going to talk about today. You can see that over here. So we'll get started with our table. So to create a table, you use a table element. Thank you, HTML. Opening tag and the closing tag, and everything will go inside of here. The first element we're going to look at is the caption element. The caption element adds a title to our chart to explain what the data below is all about. It's a title essentially for top 10 movies of 2021 in the US. So this is going to add a heading to our chart. Now, a table, just like the HTML document, has a head section, which has the data about the web page, about the table, and it has a body section, which is the actual data. So you think about your spreadsheet, the headings you see at the top of the spreadsheet, that's the data, that's the table head that explains what the data below is. So inside, after my caption, I'm going to add a T head element for the table head, and that's where I'm going to put my headings. Now, in each table, it's important to understand, just like in a spreadsheet, there are rows, and then in the rows are cells, the individual data items. So for each row of data in our table, we need a TR for table row element. And then inside the TR, remember for the lists, we had LI elements inside for each list item. Inside of a table row, we have TD for table data elements. So, but up in the head, instead of table data, because it's the heading, we're going to use TH for table head. We'll see table data once we get to the body. So for a heading, our columns are going to be rank, title, millions, how much money did it make at the box office, and director. Each one of those things is in a TH cell element, and all of that is in a table row. When I save and refresh, here's the heading for my chart of data. The heading for each column. Now that I've created the head, now we're going to create T body for the main data. It also has a TR, a row, a TR element for each row. And then inside of here is where I'll put the data that matches the heading above it. Spider-Man. TD 573 million. And it was directed by John Watts. So when I save this page and refresh the browser, now I can see my first row of data underneath my heading. Here's my caption at the top. You can see it's automatically centered by default. My TH elements are automatically put in bold, and then the TDs line up underneath it. So for each one of my rows of data, I'm going to add a TR element inside the body. Now, it makes it much easier to read if you do it like this, but again, the browser doesn't care about line returns and spaces. So I could easily do it all in one line. So whichever you think is easier to read is the better way to go. What makes it more manageable for you? And Destin Daniel Cretin. Now, when I save this and open the page, you'll note that I didn't have to say how wide the column is. It automatically adjusts to whatever is the longest item in that table. So I'm going to be a cheat and copy and paste and replace the data. Shang-Chi, number 3 is Venom. Venomade 213. And directed by Andy Serkis. So this is what I mean by a table of data. We've got it's like a spreadsheet with our columns, our headings at the top, our data inside, and in this case, the browser will automatically adjust for whatever the biggest value is in that row, or in that column, I should say. Now, again, it's important to understand once you've got your headings, not to miss out on one of your TDs. If you miss out on one of your TDs, it'll fill in the blank and it'll slide everything over. So it's very important. And this is the catch, the gotcha with working with tables, is that you have to be very careful of your opening TR tag, opening TD, closing TD. So I find it much easier to write it out like this so I can easily see what's inside of what and I don't make any mistakes. Now, tables can also have, after the table body, they can have a foot, T-foot element for the footer. I'll make it a row, but there's only one thing I want to add. And that is source paste magazine. So in my table footer, I've got, it's not the ranks, but I want to put source paste magazine across the bottom. It's information that belongs with the table, but you can see it squashed it into the first column. So what we can do though is we can tell the browser we want this data, this TD, to span multiple columns. So inside of my TD element, I'm going to add an attribute for call span, which means column span. I'm going to tell it to span across, please, 4 columns. And now when I save, it'll automatically go across. I mean, that's short, but it would automatically span 4 columns. So call span will let us um, add data that goes across multiple columns. So in quick review, a table is a spreadsheet or tabular data, if you will. It's the table element. Everything goes inside the table element. We can have a heading for our users by using the caption element to describe what is this table all about that they're about to look at. That comes first. It has to come first. After that, we've got a head section, which is information about the table, and then the body, which is the actual data. Regardless, for each row, we need a TR element. And in the heading, we've got TH for table head. And that tells the browser this is the label for the data that's underneath it with the TH element. We've got one for each column here. That's what the T head is for. T body is the actual data. We use T rows for each row of data. Inside of there, we use TD for table data. And then we want to fill up the TDs to match the same number of THs so we have data under our headings. Additionally, if we wanted to span across more than one column, we would still use a row, a TR, but then our TD, we can tell it to span more than one column, depending on how many columns we want it to cover. In this case, we put it in the T foot, so it's still information about the table. We don't want to put it outside of the table element, but it's not the data. It's more supplementary, secondary information. We'll look at styling them once we get into CSS styling to make it look nice, have it borders and stuff like that. But that's how you build it in HTML. Part 2 is more fun with links. So last week, you'll remember, we used our anchor tag. This is the link to Humber College website. We used an anchor tag, an A tag, with an href to point to an external website. And got to put the closing tag on the other side of the text. There we go. Clicking on here will take us to the Humber College website, and then we can go back again. But the important thing to understand about the A tag, the anchor tag, is that I can put other things inside of it. Imagine if I put an image element inside of my anchor tag. So here's my image element. You can see I'm inside the anchor tag. Here's the opening anchor tag. Here's the closing anchor tag. Let's give it a width as well so it's easier to see. So there's my button. But now that I've put it inside my anchor tag, if I click on the image, I can make my image a link, a hyperlink. In this case, you can see that if I go here, I'm not on this page anymore. I've left my website to go to the Humber website. We don't want people to leave our website. So one of the tricks is inside of the anchor tag, we can add a target attribute equals underscore blank. So you can see href as an attribute inside the a tag and target blank. What target blank does, if you look here and see that I'm on tables and links, now if I click it with target equals blank, look at that. That opens up a new tab. So I've gone to a remote site, but I've got it in a new tab. That's what target blank does. But I haven't left my website, so I haven't sent my customers to some other website. So that is taking our image element, putting it inside an anchor tag, an A tag, to create a hyperlink to make an image, a clickable image that will link to another site. Finally, what we're going to do now is we're going to create, let me just show you inside the folder here. This is my index, my home page. I have a page 2 and a page 3. So I'll click on page 2. Look at how fancy that is. You are now on page 2. Page 3. Welcome to page 3. So these 3 pages are meant to be my website, but I can't get to them. I could ask my users to type this into the browser, but that's not very user friendly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create navigation. That is simply the menu that will link these 3 separate HTML files together. And that is what makes a website. A web page is an HTML file, but a website is when HTML files are linked together specifically through navigation through a menu. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a new element, and that is the nav element. And if I hit save and refresh, you're not going to see anything. That's because nav is just an empty block element. We're just telling the browser inside this box is where I'm going to put my navigation. So it doesn't add anything to the web page. We're just telling the browser this is navigation inside of here. Now, if you think about a menu, if you went to a restaurant and looked at the menu is a list of menu items, right? So that's the same thing for your navigation. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an unordered list of our web pages. LI, home page. Remember our unordered lists? LI. I'm just going to say second page. I'm not going to confuse it with subjects or topics, just so that we can see the pages sequentially. So here's my navigation: home page, second page, third page. Inside a nav element to make navigation. Now, what is missing? If I click on it, nothing happens, right? So what do we need to make this text a hyperlink? You got it. I can hear you all shouting at once, even though we're not together. An anchor tag. So inside my LI, I'm going to add my anchor tag. And I'm going to wrap the anchor tag around my navigation text. And I'll put that on all 3 right now. So now we've got our, hang on a second. You can see we've got our text inside of anchor tags, inside of our LI tags, inside of our unordered list tags, inside of our nav tags. So this is referred to as nesting, when you've got something inside of something. But what we've done is we're going to add a hyperlink around this text, and we're going to have the hyperlink link to the other pages. How do we do that? Again, it's with the href attribute, but instead of HTTPS www, because it's on the same site, we're just going to give it the name of the file. In this case, homepage is index.html. Page 2, the second page, is page2.html. Page 3 equals .html. So note, I didn't say HTTPS. You only add HTTPS : to your href if you're going to an external website, to somebody else's web page. If you're linking to the pages on your own website, you just put the name of the file. In this case, page2.html, page3.html. The home page, always index.html. So now you can see I've made my menu hyperlinks. So if I click on second page, you can see in the little text underneath, page2.html, it's going to take me to page 2. Now, I can't get back unless I hit the back button, but it's working. Let's go to the third page. There we are, page 3. Still stuck, can't get back unless I hit the back button. So now that this is working, what needs to happen is just quite simply, we add this same navigation to the other pages. So the opening nav tag all the way down to the closing nav tag, I'm going to copy that and paste it into the other pages. That's page 2. Here's page 3. So now that I've done that, I've took my nav and I pasted it on all 3 web pages. I didn't save that one. There we go. Now, here I am on the home page, index.html. I can go to the second page and look at there. Now the navigation's there. Now I can easily click here to get back to the home page. Go to the third page. Come back to the home page. Go to the second page. Go to the third page. Go to the second page. Back home again. So there you are. That's creating navigation or linking to external pages within the same website using the nav element for navigation, the unordered list element because we have a list of items here, and for each li we've got the text we want the user to see inside the a tag, and then the href points to the name of the HTML file. Again, these I didn't make this up. This is the actual names: index.html, page2.html, page3.html. Is the hrefs, the pages that you want to link to. This lesson is important today because you're required for your assignment 1 to link a 3-page website together. So we do have a lab today to practice for it. So you'll have everything you need in terms of technical skill to complete assignment 1, except for one thing we're going to do next week. So again, refresher, our today, creating a table of data, tabular data, a spreadsheet with the table element. We had a caption element for the heading of it to explain what the table is all about. The table head section, which is information about the data, which are the headings to our columns. For each row of data, we've got a TR, a table row element. Inside the table row, we've got in the head, we have a TH element for each column heading. And then in the table bodies, the actual data, we've got a table row for each row of data inside the TR tag, a TD for each cell that lines up with the heading of the data. The browser automatically adjusts for the length of the widest thing in the cells, so we don't have to do anything. It takes care of it. And we've got a table row for um, every row of data. It's tricky. You can see all these opening, closing tags, so you want to pay very careful attention as you're working. Sometimes people do the TRTDs empty first and then fill them in. They find that easier, but you'll find whatever's easiest for you as you work. Outside of the body, the main data, we don't have to, but we can have a T-foot element if we have supplementary information that belongs to the table. It's not necessary, but that's how we can do it. In that case, if we wanted to not have everything squashed into the first cell, if we wanted to go across multiple cells, inside the TD element, we could do call span that lets us span multiple columns and specify how many columns we want to span. And that's building a table in HTML. Carrying on with fun from links, we saw last week we could create a link to an external website with our text, but the A tag will make anything inside of it a hyperlink. This week, we took an image element and put that inside of our A tag so that our image became a hyperlink to our external site. We also saw if we are linking to an external site, it's helpful for our user if we give them, if we open up that link in a new tab. We open up a new tab by adding inside of the A element, A tag, target equals underscore blank. And that tells the browser to open a new window for this link when they click it. And finally, expanding our knowledge on links by creating a menu, a navigation system for the website, not just a link to another page, but a menu for this website. Again, once we get to styling, we're going to make this look like buttons. But for this week, it's just understanding that to create a menu, we use a nav element, and everything inside of there is going to be the navigation. We've got an unordered list for our list of pages. For each LI, we've got text we want the user to see, but we put it inside an A tag. And that's what makes it a hyperlink. In this case, for the hrefs, we're not saying https:// because we're not leaving this website. We're staying on the same website. So we only need to provide the file name of the other HTML files. As I mentioned in the beginning, the home page should always be called index.html. You can see I've named them in lowercase as well. Not critical, but it's good practice and an industry standard. Homepage index.html. Your other pages might be about or products, all one word with no spaces. But just to keep things simple this week, I've called them page 2 and page 3. And that's it. So you're going to get practice in today's lab. You're going to swap out some content, and you're going to work with a table and build navigation for it. So you're going to have a 3-page mini website at the end of today's lab. Now, if you have any questions or if you get stuck, please send me an email, zip up your code and send me your code. I'll get you unstuck and I'll get you back to work. Again, getting this thing is important because you're going to need it for assignment 1, which we'll go into detail about next week. But yes, so thank you. And any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. And I will see you next week.